Right, live pictures coming out of Washington there on the right of your screen. Joe Biden set to be inaugurated as the 46th U.S. president this evening in what many are describing as a ceremony like no other. So Biden will take his oath of office, him being sworn in by the Chief Justice John Roberts. Kamala Harris, the first woman and black American vice president, will be sworn in by the Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor. So the first time in the United States history, a president is being inaugurated amid many crowds due to the coronavirus pandemic and security threats, of course, following the storming of the U.S. Capitol on January the 6th. Let's go live to Washington, D.C. now. Joseph Williams, a senior editor at the U.S. News, joins me now, as well as Ray Baker, a host of a Public Agenda podcast and a professor at Towson University. He's in Baltimore. That's some 35 miles from Washington, D.C. A very good evening to you both, gentlemen. Thanks indeed for your time. Mr. Williams, I'll start with you. So Joe Biden certainly inherits, an economy ravaged by the COVID-19 pandemic, and he's being inaugurated exactly 2 weeks after a riot on the Capitol. What does this moment mean for America?
It's very much a transitional moment because, as you mentioned, we had this near insurrection at the U.S. Capitol, something that hasn't been done since the War of 1812 with Britain. It is a transitional moment. It could be a transformational moment. It very much has the potential to be that, mostly because President Biden is arriving at a time of almost a quadruple play of challenges. Not only is he taking office amid a global pandemic, which has never happened before in the United States, a transition of power in the middle of that. Secondly, he's got an economy that's struggling against the pandemic, mainly because his predecessor kind of let the pandemic foment and fester, and it took down the economy with it. Third, we have the rise of white nationalism. A lot of groups that had been under the surface during the previous administrations came to full bloom under President Trump, mostly because he embraced them as his supporters. And fourthly, he's got to deal with racial reconciliation. The Black Lives Matter protests over the summer basically sent the nation a message that those problems are still unsolved. Even though we had a black president not too long ago, we still have vast inequality. The COVID virus manifested itself with that. President Donald Trump used it to come to power, and President Biden has to fixate on all of these problems at once. So not only is he going to have to hit the ground running, he's basically going to have to hit the ground sprinting.
Mr. Baker, Biden will deliver his inaugural speech, and just after being sworn in, he's expected to talk about what we've heard before, rebuilding America, and touch on his vision to defeat the COVID-19 pandemic. But what we're obviously expecting is a big change in tone regarding the coronavirus, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. The first thing that we can certainly say about a potential President Biden is that they will believe in science. The scientists will lead the way first and foremost. One of the challenges many Americans had with President Trump is that personally and privately, from some leaked tapes that we heard over the course of 2020, President Trump knew how dangerous and severe the coronavirus would be for so many Americans, yet publicly he said it will magically disappear. President Biden will start out having to acknowledge the scientific piece of this, and he's already mentioned that for his first 100 days, he would like to see all Americans with 100 days of masking. So with regard to the coronavirus, that will be where he will have to start.
Yeah. Mr. Williams, there's been a national security backlash. We talked about this a little bit yesterday, following, of course, the January 6th riots on the Capitol. And this is the first time there's not been a peaceful transition of power in the United States. Is the journey to healing, as Mr. Biden refers to it, that has already been referred to by him, part of what will form his agenda as he takes office?
It has to. We have white nationalists who are on the rise. They've made themselves plain, and the very fact that the Capitol is ringed in security indicates how huge a problem that is. The difficulty here is we have people who fervently believe that he is coming into office as an illegitimate president. And a lot of those people believe, a lot of their beliefs intersect with white nationalist beliefs. And it's going to be very difficult for President Biden to come to unity out of that scenario. basically because a third of the country is indoctrinated in this. And President Trump, while he may have left the White House, is still very much on the scene. You heard him talk about that this morning when he was getting ready to board Air Force One in his departure ceremony. He talked about how he's going to remain on the scene. He's going to keep fighting for his people, as he put it. And the Republican Party also has to deal with the fact that he is still going to remain as a political force. So the impeachment beyond that is going to either create a scenario in which President Trump is completely repudiated or in which his supporters see him as a martyr. So any way you slice it, America is going to have to grapple with this problem, grapple with it quickly, and falls near the top, if not at the top, of President Biden's new agenda.
Mr. Williams, just how much damage then has been done? Because in America, we've been watching a lot of the coverage over the past couple of days, and there seems to really be a sense that a lot of damage was done under the Trump administration. What is it going to take to get that, I guess, unity that we will hear possibly in the inaugural speech of the president-elect, relating to unity and trying to forge some kind of relations that we've seen really deteriorate over the past couple of years?
Well, he's going to have to start reaching out to Republicans. You saw some of that this morning with many of them on the dais ahead of the inaugural. We saw some of them. He invited many of them to his prayer service this morning at the Catholic Church in downtown Washington. He has got to make it plain that he is not the enemy, that we're all in a collective, that we all are Americans. He's started to do that with a call for 100 days of mask wearing. That is similar to the call that we had in World War II, where you had to save scrap metal for the troops. You had to grow your own vegetables in the garden to avoid having to go to the grocery store and putting a strain on that national resource. So his agenda, the idea top of his agenda is that we are all in this together. We are all Americans. We all have to pull together, not only to defeat this virus, but also to reunify the country and get to a place where we're all advancing forward and none feel left behind. It's a very, very tall order, not the least of which because he has a very split legislative body ahead of him. He's got a 50-50 margin in the Senate with just one vote. Yeah. And Chuck Schumer, the Senate, the Democratic leader who's going to come in as the majority leader, has already been negotiating with his outgoing successor, Mitch McConnell, to try to come up with a power-sharing agreement. But it's not going to make very many liberals happy, mainly because Biden had to tack to the left in order to get their votes. So he's got a tall job ahead of him. It's not going to be easy. If anyone can do it, Biden is probably the person, given the fact that he's got a lot of personal relationships with many of these senators. But the proof is going to be in the pudding.
Mr. Baker, issues of race relations in the United States is not something that starts now. But many have said that, I guess, it became so much more prominent because the Trump administration had given way for some to say things out much louder. Would you allude on that for us? And what is the road then ahead expected to look like for Biden in addressing this issue?
The framing of the question, following what Joe just offered, is very important. Yeah. As Joe importantly laid out, the United States' way forward will have to be one of unity, one of coming together, and one of progress. The challenge, however, is that it is difficult to have unity amongst people who vehemently deny the humanity of another group of people. By and large, those 75 million Trump supporters, not all of them obviously are explicitly racist, but all of them seemingly are signing on to or condoning or allowing for racism, xenophobia, and sexism that Mr. Trump embodied as a president, as a celebrity, and now as an outgoing president. President Joe Biden's challenge will be, how do you create unity in a place where the division is so great that there's a functional belief in the inhumanity of the other group? By and large, what many Black Americans and their allies over the long, hot summer of 2020 came and told Americans is that Black Americans want every right to justice, equality, and fair treatment.
All right, just 1 second. Sorry, Mr. Baker, just 1 second. We have to go live to those pictures. Please stay with us for just a moment. We'll bring them live for you. All right. The Vice President-elect Kamala Harris had just walked in just a few moments ago. Stay on those visuals there. You would see those are live pictures coming out of Washington, D.C. just on this evening where you have the inauguration of the president-elect Joe Biden. We're expecting straight after he's sworn in for him to give an inaugural speech. And a lot of that, many commentators are saying, will center around, you would know that the United States has just gone over the 400,000 mark in terms of COVID-19 deaths. So a lot of his focus will be on how America will deal with that. Let's go there now.